All right. Welcome to our adult discipleship today. We're going to be in 1 Samuel chapter 4 through 7 today. We're not going to obviously read all of that or talk about every single thing in there. We're going to talk about the high points today. So, 1 Samuel chapter 4 through 7 is the story of the loss of the Ark of the Lord. So we have to do a little background. So the Ark of the Lord is a chest which basically contains the memorial items for the people of Israel. Right? So while they were in the wilderness, Moses is commanded to build the Ark of the Lord. Let's see if I can get it to draw, right? Look real bad, it's draw it back into there. So, and basically it's a box. Angel wings like this. Angels. Nobody knows what the angels look like, so I can just draw them all weird like that. And the inside of the box are some memorial items. There is a jar of the manna that they ate while they were in the desert. There are the fragments of the first set of the Ten Commandments that God had given to Moses. If you go back to Exodus, he had to shatter them on the ground because they built the golden calf, right? So there are memorial items in this box that represent God. Now, for the context of what we're going to talk about in 1 Samuel, the best way to think of this box is to think of it as representing God. Like, where the box is, that's where God is. Now, we can sort of, after that, the Bible has a tension within it about whether God lives in the box, or on top of the box, or he's not associated with the boxes at all. But in this part of the story, it's best to sort of think of the box as God, right? Think of it like the idol of God, the physical representation of God. Okay, so in chapter 4, the word of Samuel went out to all Israel. Now Israel came out into the battle against the Philistines, and they camped near Ebenezer, and the Philistines encamped near Aphek. Now, let me draw that too. So much of the land of Israel that we're talking about is a bunch of hills and valleys, right? And so Israel is over here on one hill, and the Philistines are over on the other hill. And what they're going to do is they're going to go down into the valley, and this is where they're going to fight. Let's see if I can draw all the people fighting here. This is where they're going to fight with their swords, and then they're going to go back up into the mountains when they camp each night, right? So we forget in the modern world, that battles take many, many days, and basically end only when one group or the other runs out of people to fight, right? So the whole context of battles is that you come out in the middle of the beginning of the day and you do sort of like, taunts, and we would call it now, trash talking, and then you go down the hills, you fight the battle, and fight, and when your forces are depleted, or your general is killed, or your king is captured, or whatever, then you leave. That's when the battle is over. Until then, you just go back up into the mountains. Okay, so the Philistines drew their line up against Israel, and when the battle spread, Israel was defeated by the Philistines, who killed 4,000 men on the field of battle. And when the troops came to camp, the elders said, "Why has the Lord defeated us today before the Philistines? Let us bring the Ark of the Covenant of the Lord here from Shiloh, that he may come among us and save us from the power of the enemies." Now, what they're doing is they're saying that we need God himself, represented by the box, or in the box, or whatever, however you want to think about it, to come and be our general. What we're going to do is we're going to bring God to the battlefield, and he's going to do all of his miraculous things. Right? So again, go back to what we were learning about in Exodus and in Numbers, right? When the Ark of the Covenant marched out before the people, God basically defeated the enemies of the people himself, right? He would give them victory in the battle. So the Ark of the Covenant here represents not only God himself fighting for Israel, it's also a little bit of sort of like a magic talisman or token that they think they need. Like, they don't think God is with them if he is not physically with them. Right? That's the context, right? That they're like, oh, we left God back at home. That was the problem. We should have brought God with us, and then we would win the battle. Like, he has to be here with us, right? So there's the physicality of the box is very important for the story. Like, if the box is not here, God is not here. God is like in the box, or like God. Like, this is God's, one way you describe it is like his wheelchair. If it doesn't come with him, he is unable to move on his own, right? So that problematic language I want you to really fix on, because that's going to be the key to the story. Okay. So they went to Shiloh, and they brought with them the Ark of the Covenant, the host of the Lord, who is enthroned on the cherubim. So in the story there, this is in verse 4, if you want to write that down, the writer is describing that God is literally sitting on top of the angel figurines on top of the box. Like, this is his throne, and God has to be carried around in order for him to go places. Okay. And so then as soon as the Ark came, all Israel gave a great shout, and the earth resounded, and it talks about how woe is us. And right. So the Philistines fought against Israel the next day, and Israel was defeated, and they fled, every man to his home. And there was a great slaughter, for there fell 30,000 soldiers from Israel. And the Ark of the Covenant was captured, and the two sons of Eli, Hophni and Phinehas, had died. Okay? So that's the part that I really want to focus in on there, is verse 10 and 11. Right? We have this whole context that God is coming with the box, and what happens is it doesn't work. Right? God comes, and now the battle is so bad, it's even worse than it was the first time. The first day, no box, they lost 4,000 people. Okay? So without God, they lost 4,000 people. With God, and I'll put that in quotes, they lost 30,000 people. And they lose the box, and they lose the priests who were carrying the box. Right? Right? They lose God. Right? So the idea here is that's why they all flee back to their own house. Right? The king is dead because the Philistines had just captured God. Right? This is like your Tom Clancy movie where, the terrorists come and kidnap the President of the United States. Like, we're all going to not know what happens and what we're going to do. So everybody runs home. Okay. So, we're going to skip over the death of Eli. That's an important story, but it's going to kind of get in the way today of us trying to get to the end of the story, right? Okay, so we're going to skip over the rest of chapter 4. The death of Eli is important. We'll come back and talk about that when we talk about Samuel. Maybe I'll get to that next week. Right? So, jumping to chapter 5, verse 1. When the Philistines captured the Ark of God, they brought it from Ebenezer to Ashdod. Okay, so let me draw my map of Israel now. Okay, so here's the Mediterranean, right? Here's the Jordan River. This is the Sea of Galilee up here. Writing very poorly as I write backwards. Here's the Dead Sea down here. Shiloh is somewhere around in here, and Ashdod is about here. My map people will tell me I probably have done that a little bit wrong, but I'm doing it with the back of my hand very quickly, so we're just going to move on. Okay. Ashdod is down by the Mediterranean Sea. So we've gone from up here in the hill country all the way down into Philistia, right? So you can kind of think of the border running sort of like this, right? The Philistines live mainly against the coast, and the Israelites live mainly in the hill country up in the top, right? So we've come from Israel, the Philistines came up here, fought Israel, defeated them, everybody goes home, and the Philistines take the Ark of the Covenant back to their capital, basically. And they brought the Ark of the Covenant and set it in the house of Dagon and set it up beside Dagon. Now Dagon is the god of Ashdod, right? So the Philistines worship a different god than Israel does. Now that may not be that surprising since we're talking about the Bible, but that's important for you to remember because again, the issue here is that gods represent power. And so the different gods have different places that they live. Gods don't have don't have the ability to sort of teleport from place to place. They're bound based on their idols to a certain spot. If you want God to come with you, you have to pick up his body and carry it with you. If you don't carry his body, then he's always going to be over there in the corner waiting for you at home, right? So we brought the Israel's God to the home of the Philistines' God, right? And again, this is a mimicry of the way that kings work in this time period. When a king is defeated and captured, he is literally brought into the palace of the king who captured him, and can be killed in front of him, or blinded and maimed, or enslaved, or whatever it is. So the idea is you literally take the power, the human or the divine person, and move them to your domain, and that's how you show that you have taken the power, right? Where the person is where the power is, and you literally have said, I sort of taken your power and, sort of consumed it in myself, and brought it into my domain. Okay, so that's very important. So we're now inside of Philistia's territory, and God is now the slave or the prisoner of Dagon. Okay, so that's the context shift, because that's where the story is really going to pick up now. And when the people of Ashdod rose early the next day, behold, Dagon was face down on the ground before the ark of the Lord. Okay? Let me put my Bible in. So the idea is you have, and I don't know what Dagon looks like, right? So you have Dagon's statue, and the ark of the Lord is supposed to be bowing before him, right? Like the king who has been defeated bows before the king who is superior. You can see this all in, if you go to Assyria or Babylon, you look at their reliefs, that's how they depict battles. You see one that has the battle where they fight the king, and then the next frame, it's like cartoons, the defeated kings are all bowing down, and he's got like his foot on their neck or whatever it is to show that I won and you lost, right? So they do it, they go home, and they wake up the next morning, and Dagon is laying down in front of the ark of the Lord. So God is now the king over Dagon, right? Well, that's the idea. Like Dagon is now defeated before God. That's not what the battle said. The battle said that Israel lost and Philistia won. And now the icons are like, no. I didn't lose that battle. I won that battle. So they think, okay. And this is the funny little rhetoric as well. So they go, oh, well, like, the statue just fell down, right? God is always falling down in the ancient world. Like, the statue's always toppling over. So they go, like, tack him back up. Okay, so they pick him back up. They put Dagon back up. Let's go to the next part. Okay. I've lost my place a little bit. All right, so then I need to look at my marker. All right. So then they come and they set up let me put my marker here so I can remember. All right. And so they had fallen down before the Lord. Oh, I'm sorry. And the head and the feet were broken off. So I forgot that part. Sorry. So when the statue fell, I'm back up. I didn't read it before. Okay. The statue fell over, and it broke into pieces. So Adonai, the God of Israel, not only defeated Dagon, he killed Dagon. Because he cut off his hands and his head and laid it out in front of him. Now, the idea here is that the power of God in the box defeats the one who defeated his people. Right? This is a political statement. Right? My king is so powerful that even when you take him into prison, he still rules over your people. Okay, in that context, let's go to verse 6 of chapter 5. Now the hand of the Lord was heavy upon the people of Ashdod, and he terrified them and afflicted them with tumors, both Ashdod and its territory. Right? So now God has not only killed Dagon, he is now afflicting all of the people of the town with a plague. He's making them sick, and they're going to start dying too. Right? And they're like, oh no, this box has got to go, right? We got to get him out. That's what they're going to say. Now, the people of Ashdod, when they saw how things were, they said, the ark of the God of Israel must not remain with us, for his hand is heavy against us and against Dagon our God. So they sent and gathered together all the lords of the Philistines, and they say, what shall we do with the ark of the Lord? And they said, let the ark of the Lord, the ark of the God of Israel be brought to Gath. So they're going to take it from one city to the next city. They're going to go to, I think Gath is to the south, if I remember my geography right. So they're going to send the box to the next town, okay? And so they send it to Gath, and there he sends them a plague too. Right? Like the box is carrying the pestilence with it. Right? I mean, I don't know what actually is in the box, right? But it sounds a lot like there's radiation in the box, right? Like it's emanating, whether we're talking about actual radiation or we're talking about like spiritual radiation. It is emanating the pestilence wherever it goes. Whoever lives with that box has to go. So they take it to Gath, it caused affliction there, and so they send. So then they send it to Ekron. I don't know who the guy is, who's the king of Ekron, who thinks like, oh, these other two cities are all dying, let me go and take the box. But they take it. So they send the next city, Ekron, which I think it's going south, is what I'm saying. And as soon as it came to the ark of Ekron, the people of Ekron called out, they said, they have brought to us the ark of God of Israel to kill us and all of our people. Right? They sent to the next city over, and they're like, oh, no. We know what happened in Ashdod. We know what happened again. Don't bring that box up in our city. I don't want to die. So they gathered everybody all together, and they said, send away the ark of God of Israel, and let it return to its own place, so that it will not kill us and our people. Because the hand of God was very heavy there, and there was a deathly panic throughout the whole city. And the people who did not die were struck with tumors, and the cry of the city went up to heaven. Now, this all occurs over 7 months. It takes them 7 months to figure out that the box is the problem, and they need to get the box out of their city. So the Philistines call the priests and the diviners and say, what should we do with the ark of God? Tell us how that we can send it to his own place. And they said, if we send it away empty, they said, do not send it away empty, but by all means give a guilt offering. Okay, so let me write that down. Guilt offering. Now, a guilt offering implies that there is some sort of sin or transgression that has occurred, and you have to atone for the offering. And so, what do they offer to him? In this case, they offer representations of what was occurring to them, right? So the pestilence that had fallen on them were tumors and mice, right? So they're vermin, they're running through everything, eating all of your crops. And there's boils or tumors or growths or whatever on their bodies, right? So they make golden representations of those so that when they send it away, they can send away the pestilence as well, right? So this is, again, a very common occurrence. This building of the icons is very common in the ancient world because it's the idea of how you get rid of disease, right? You literally think of it like voodoo dolls or whatever it is, right? You make a representation and then you put the thing into the object and then you get rid of the object and that gets rid of the disease or gets rid of the pestilence. Or in the case of voodoo dolls, gets rid of the person you don't want. Right, that's how you do it, okay? So they build it, and they put it in a cart. They're going to take it, put it in a cart with 2 cows, and they're going to send it on their way. Now, this is, again, part of the magic of what's going to happen. The 2 cows they take to pull the cart are cows that have never pulled a cart. Right, they're inexperienced. They don't know what they're supposed to do. They've not been trained to pull the cart. You take, the idea is that you're also not taking bulls, you're taking female cows. And you take them away from their offspring, and you take away, so the idea is these cattle should not take the ark to Israel unless it's supposed to go. This is how they're going to know if it's the box that makes them sick or something else. Okay? So again, we're doing magic. We're doing something magic here, right? We're casting like the bones of the ground or whatever. We're shaking the dice and we're trying to see what it is. So we're going to take female cows who don't know how to pull a cart. We're going to take away their calves, which means they shouldn't leave, right? Like the mother shouldn't want to go back towards their offspring, right? So we're going to put the calves in our house. We're going to put the cows outside. We're going to hook them to the cart, and we're going to see what they do. If they go up to Israel, right, that's going uphill, if they go uphill away from their offspring, pulling this cart, then we know that it was God who caused this pestilence. But if they turn and they come back to us, then we know that it wasn't God, right? So we've set the dice, we've set the game against God. This shouldn't happen. What should happen is we hook them up and those cows just look at you like, you're stupid. Why are we, I'm not going anywhere. I don't know how to pull a cart. You got my baby over there. I'm not going anywhere. I'm standing right here. But what happens is they don't do that, right? So they set it all up, put the cows, yoke them to the cart, take away the calves, and leave them at home. Brought the ark of the Lord in the box, and the box with the golden mice and the images of the tumors. And the cows went straight in the direction of Beth Shemesh along one highway, crying as they went, lowing, right? And they neither turned to the right nor the left, and they went as far as the border to Beth Shemesh. So Beth Shemesh is a city right here. Shemesh. It's kind of on the border. It's the border city. And so the cows go straight back to God. They don't turn. They don't go anywhere. They do what cows are not supposed to do. And that's how the Philistines know that God was the one that caused it, because the magic worked. Right? The thing that's not supposed to, the improbable situation of cows that don't know how to pull a cart, and they pull it away from where they're supposed to be, where their home is, and they don't turn to the right, they're not wandering back, they go straight up the road as if someone is leading them, because someone is leading them. Right? God is saying, take me back to my house. God is driving the cart, is basically the idea. So it goes far as the border to Beth Shemesh. Now the people of Beth Shemesh were harvesting their wheat in the valley, and when they lifted their eyes and saw the ark, they rejoiced to see it. And the cart came into the field of Joshua of Beth Shemesh and stopped there. Now there was a great stone there, so they split the wood of the cart and offered the cows as the burnt offering to the Lord. Okay, so these people are just working the field, doing what they do. Now, notice that it's been 7 months. So the battle occurred in the spring. We'll say March, right? Which is where our month March comes from, because that's the month of marching. That's when you go and fight a battle. This is the springtime. 7 months have passed, so we're like in October, right? And it's the wheat harvest at the end of the season. And they look up, so they're doing their job, and they look up, and there's the Ark of the Covenant coming over the hill in this cart with the cows singing or crying or lowing or making noises, right? And so they realize that God has come back home. You know, she'll be coming around the mountain when she comes, right? He brought himself back home. And so they disassemble the cart and they burn the wood and use the cattle and offer it to God. And there in that place is where God goes to live now. That's his new home, because that's where he came. He stopped, right? He came home, stopped the cart. Here's my new house. Joshua, your house is now my house. And so that's where the rest of the story is basically leaving us, is that they come to Beth Shemesh and they offer before God. Now, and it describes like what happened in the box and all that stuff. And then, here's the problem. God, as if that wasn't proving to you that God is more powerful than any other God in the world, and that he's more powerful than any human, the people of Beth Shemesh, they don't know what they're supposed to do, so they mess up. And they decide to look inside of the box. Now, I don't know if you've seen Indiana Jones and the Raiders of the Lost Ark. Sorry, I had to get my right Indian. I don't know if you've seen Raiders of the Lost Ark, but looking inside of the box is not a good idea. Right? Like, it's not, you don't look in the box, bro. Like, but they did. So this box is just living in someone's house. Right? It's not his normal tabernacle. This guy just in his back room, he's like, oh yeah, God lives, he's staying in my guest room right now. Right? And so people came and they looked inside the box. And so what God does is he strikes 70 of them dead because they looked at it. And they said, we can't keep the box here. The box is going to kill us too. Right? And so we're now at the end of chapter 6. And so he says, and so they send messengers to the inhabitants of Kiriath Jearim, and they said, the Philistines have returned the ark of the Lord. Come down and take it up to you. And the men of chapter 7, the men of Jearim came and took the ark of the Lord and brought it into the house of Abinadab on the hill. And they consecrated his son Eleazar to be in charge of the ark of the Lord. And from the day that the ark was lodged at Kiriath Jearim, a long time passed, some 20 years, and all the house of the Lord lamented, all the house of Israel lamented after the Lord. Now, what the point is that Kiriath Jearim, and my scribbles have gotten here, is the Levitical town next to Beth Shemesh. It's the town where the people who were supposed to take care of God's box live. And so the Beth Shemesh people they're normal farmers. They're just normal Israelites. They don't know what they're doing. That's why they keep looking in the box when they're not supposed to and killing everybody, right? And so they send the people, the professionals, come down, take the box back to you. You know how to deal with it. You know how to keep it holy and all that. So they come, and God lives down here. Now notice that it says, and all Israel lamented after the Lord. Why? Because God is not in his proper house. He's living in some other dude's house. He's down in Kiriath Jearim. He's not up in Shiloh where he's supposed to be. God's house that he built is up here. Where is God? He's living down here. So he's in the territory, but he's not back to his home. And the whole idea behind that is, why didn't you just bring him back home? Right? Why didn't you just send the Levites from Shiloh to go get him from Kiriath Jearim and take him back to his house? But they didn't think about that. So the whole story is based, in my opinion, on this idea of sort of stupidity. Right? Israel's stupid because they think that the box is going to give them magic, like battle powers, right? Like they think that it's going to help them win the Fortnite competition, to put it in the kids, right? Like they think it's like magic armor, basically. And God's like, I'm not magic armor, so I'm just going to let 30,000 of you die to prove my point. Oh, you thought you were going to win the battle with me? How about 7 times more of you die? Okay, so then God goes to the Philistia, and they think, oh, okay, we won, you lost, you're going to bow down before God. He's like, no, that's not how that works. Boom, your God bows down before me. And then they're stupid because they keep moving from city to city to city going, you take the plague, no, you take the plague, no, you take the plague. And finally they figure out, let's just send it back to Israel. It's their box, right? Like maybe he's not supposed to be here, right? And it goes to the people who don't know what they're doing, and admittedly they don't know what they're doing. But they also screw it up, right? By not keeping the proper precautions of how God's holiness works. And then, when they go and send the Levites to come get it, the Levites of Kiriath Jearim probably should have taken God back home to Shiloh. But they didn't. They kept him in their town, right? And now Israel is not really doing what it's supposed to do. So we have this whole context of how stupid can everyone be? And that's setting the stage in the book of Samuel for God to send his person to lead them. No one knows what they're doing. Everyone's so dumb, they need a leader, right? And so that's what we're going to see in chapters 8 through 12 next week, is we're going to pick up on this idea of Israel needing a leader who knows what he's supposed to do. A leader who's going to tell them how to fight battles, right? So let's just write it all out. What did we learn in this story? We need a leader who can fight battles for us. We need a leader who has respect for God. Right? Okay, so that was the first part of the story, fight our battles. Second part of the story was respect for God. That was the Dagon thing, right? The third one is he knows what the proper procedures are. He knows how to rule. He knows what to do with God, what to do with us, what to do with the Philistines. These are the 3 requirements that we're going to be looking for in a king in the book of Samuel. Okay? And so with that, I'm going to pause, because that's going to be what we'll pick up next week.